She remarries?
That's not how it works with police. I got remarried. That pension is mine. 'Cause that would be like.
Okay, thank you all for coming out. I am going to call to order the work session. The first item we have tonight on the agenda is Z25-06 LDC text amendment. And Ashley. She has to come down from the big stage down there. That's amazing.
All right, thank you, Chair and Commission. This is Z2506. It's a land development code text amendment related to wireless communication facilities. So tonight, staff is requesting that the Planning Commission initiate this text amendment. Do you hear the echo?
I was going to ask, is that Veronica's computer or somebody has the sound on? This feels reminiscent of 2001, first time team meetings for old timers.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna try and power through. It is a little distracting, so we're requesting that the Planning Commission initiate this text amendment tonight and then conduct the citizen review if there is any members of the public that want to comment on this item. Essentially, we're seeking to modify a number of sections within the Land Development Code. We want to open up our terms section in case we identify any definitions that need to be modified. We also want to look at updating the use regulations within Section 3.1. We would like to update Section 5.8 related to wireless communication facilities, and then Section 6.6 related to design reviews. Essentially, the purpose of this is to clarify where specific wireless communication facility types are permitted, what those development standards look like, and then the application process related to wireless communication facilities. Hey, Veronica. It's not. Sorry. So one of the updates that we want to make as we process wireless communication facilities, oftentimes we'll identify some things that could be updated to clarify our code. One of the things that we noticed is that in the section of our wireless communication facilities section of the code, it references monopoles, whereas in the use table section, you can see that monopoles are not permitted within zoning districts that we anticipate they should be allowed in. So this is just really a cleanup to make sure that this table conforms to the wireless communication facility section of the ordinance. And then additionally, we would seek to update the wireless communication facility section, specifically the categories table. As you can see on here, as I referenced before, wireless communication facilities are permitted throughout those commercial zoning districts, but this table also specifies maximum heights that we'd just like to clarify, where the different heights are permitted in different zoning districts. And then additionally, we would like to update the Category 3 facilities. Currently, those go through a conditional use permit process. We know that that process often relates to whether or not the use is permitted. However, as we apply conditional use permits in this specific instance, we're really looking at design of facilities. So rather than have those go through the conditional use permit process, we want to modify that so that it's a design review process, just for clarification. So again, we would add in section 6.6 for design review so that we could add in wireless communication facilities as going through, the Category 3 facilities going through a design review process as opposed to a conditional use permit process. So next steps on this text amendment, if initiated by commission tonight, we'll bring this back for a public hearing before taking it to town council. Happy to answer any questions you have regarding this request.
All right, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions about this request for Ashley? No, it appears as though you've been quite thorough and have informed us sufficiently, and everyone is okay. Thank you very much. Okay, then I guess you don't have to go far. And you covered both of the first two, or no? We got to do the second one, right? Okay. The second item is, once again, Ashley, and it's Z2507
Mr.
LDC.
Chair.
Chairman.
My apologies. If you can just, staff needs to be directed that they should initiate.
Is there any discussion about whether or not staff should initiate said LDC text amendment in item number 1? Staff, please move forward.
Thank you. Chairman,
Thank
if you can also check and make sure there's nobody in the public that wanted to comment on this.
Thank you, Ashley. That was a test. All right, is there anyone here in the vast array of individuals here at this meeting that would like to speak on the item of the LDC text amendment? Not seeing any indiscriminate motions? I don't believe so. So staff, please go forward with the LDC text
With item
amendment.
2. I will be even quicker than the last one. So this is Z2507 related to accessory dwelling units, another text amendment. So we're again asking the commission tonight to initiate the text amendment and conduct the citizen review. We're seeking to amend the terms, which is located within Division 2, simply to update the definition of habitable to align with the accessory dwelling unit update. So just by way of background, last year, the legislation adopted House Bill 2722 that required municipalities to adopt regulations that allowed for the development of accessory dwelling units on single-family lots. And we needed to adopt those regulations by January 1st of 2025, so there was a pretty quick turnaround on that. And so as we have started to implement that, we've identified some items that needed to be amended within our code sections, specifically the terms. The new state statute indicates that accessory dwelling units, that is 75% of the gross floor area of the single-family dwelling is permitted, and then it defines gross floor area as the interior habitable area of the single-family dwelling unit. So staff used this language to develop our ADU code. We had a definition of habitable that existed in our code that we didn't update that doesn't really serve us as we apply it to ADUs. So our current definition of habitable is a space in a building for living, sleeping, eating, or cooking. Bathrooms, toilet rooms, closet, hall, storage, or utility spaces are not considered habitable space. And so we pulled this definition from the building code when we incorporated it into our land development code. But as we're starting to review accessory dwelling units, this causes a problem because it is not typical for us to exclude those from the floor area of a residence. So we're just seeking to update this definition. I don't have one proposed for you at this time, but when we come back for the public hearing, we'll obviously have a definition. But that's the remedy that we're seeking to move forward. Same steps as the last application. If initiated by commission tonight, we'll be back before you in a public hearing for adoption of the new proposed language, and then we'll move on to council. So happy to answer any questions. Other than that, just seeking that initiation and citizen review tonight.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Does anyone have any questions or reasons why we should not tell staff to move forward with this? Okay. Thank you, Ashley. I would say then, yes, initiate staff and do the text amendment. And we will move on to item number 3. DR. Oh, good call, Brian. Before I do move on, I just want to check in the public once again to see if there's anyone here who wishes to speak on item number 2. Nope. Okay. Thank you. Item 3, Z2507 LDC, just kidding, DR2523 Mari Bobas Warehouse and Sandra. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I'm here to receive feedback on DR 25-23 Mariboba's Warehouse. Just looking for general feedback that we receive from most of our design review submittals, such as elevations, landscaping, and site design. The site is located almost dead center between Baseline and Southern, and then McQueen and Cooper. It is along Houston Avenue. It's also located from our northwest growth area within the East Valley Commerce Center, PAD. It's zoned LI, but it's surrounded by single-family residential to the east and southeast. And within that light industrial zoned Commerce Center, you'll find office, light manufacturing, warehousing, and storage yards. As previously mentioned, it's zoned light industrial within the East Valley Commerce Center. PAD, it's approximately 0.66 acres in net site size. On the screen now is the site plan. So the applicant is requesting to build just shy of a 9,500 square foot office warehouse building. The office component is going to comprise of roughly 2,900 square feet of office and 6,500 square feet of warehouse. They are meeting their parking requirements at this time. They're required to have 19 spots, and they're providing 20. For their development standards, they are in adherence with their development standards that are required per the LDC, and they're proposing a little bit more than the minimum requirement for landscaping. For landscaping, they are providing many drought-tolerant plants that are on the Arizona Department of Water Resources low consumption and drought-tolerant plants within our management area. They are somewhat limited on landscaping within the SRP easement along the eastern property boundary, just in case SRP needs to go in. So there's a little bit more limited trees in that vicinity, just in case work needs to be completed in those areas. On the screen is the elevations for the building. So the south and eastern elevations are those that are going to be most visible to the public, whether it's the residential neighbors to the east or along Houston Avenue to the south. While the west and the north elevations, those ones are going to be, the western elevation is going to be obscured by the building directly to the west, so you would not see much of that elevation. The northern one is generally only going to be viewed by other light industrial uses. Another screenshot of the elevations to include the proposed screen walls and the gate with the context of the proposed elevations. The colors and materials, it's a combination of various metals. They're going to be using stucco and a couple different types of CMU blocks for their masonry wall, and they're primarily going with cool colors and blue accents. This wouldn't be the first building within that Commerce Center to use those colors. I believe there's at least 3 other buildings within that area that do utilize those colors as well. And so at this point, if there's any feedback for the site that we could provide the applicant, so when they submit for their second review, they are able to integrate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you for the presentation. Looking at the site plan, has fire reviewed this? Just looking at kind of the dead-end drive that's on the north side of the building, in order for fire to get out, that looks like it might exceed that 150 feet backup that code allows. Have they put their input on this yet or reviewed it?
They did return it for corrections for fire access.
Okay. That was the only question I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Well, I think it looks pretty good. Did you need anything else directly from us? All right. Thank you very much, Sandra. Okey doke. Moving on now to item number 4, DR 24-137, Aura Santan, and Sandra's back. Thank you.
Had to move really far for that one. Again, here to present for Aura Santan, DR 24-137. So similar to Mariboba's Warehouse, I'm just looking for general feedback for the site. This is the design review component of the proposed general plan and rezoning submittal that we saw last month. During this feedback, though, I think it needs to be noted that previously, I believe in the report and in the previous presentations, it was talked about how there was a requested fire variance that we were still awaiting feedback on. That review has been completed. It was completed yesterday afternoon, and the requested variance was denied, but staff felt that because we don't know the extent of the modifications that will be proposed for this site's design, we still would like to receive feedback on it in case it's not completely altered, and so it would still be applicable to the proposed design. And then again, for the site context, it's within our Central 202 core growth area within the Val Vista Square PAD. To the north, you'll find some multifamily high uses at Novell. You'll see the VA hospital to the west, Aldi and a bank also to the north, and then across the way to the west, you'll see Wenco and some hotels to the south. Existing zoning is regional commercial, but this design review was reviewed with the LDC regulations associated with our mixed-use large requirements. There are some proposed deviations to rezoning, and those were taken into consideration with this review. Still remaining within the Val Vista Square PAD and just shy of 12.25 acres in size. There's going to be 3 buildings proposed at this time for Aura. It's going to be a total of approximately 461,000 square feet in size. The applicant has increased the amount of commercial office space from the previous time that you saw this. Last time, I believe it was around 9,100 square feet, and they are proposing almost 21,000 square feet of office space. And then the remainder would be utilized for the residential, split between the residential units and the garage spaces. At this time, with this current iteration of the plan, if they are required to provide 657 spaces, but they are requesting a minor parking deviation that is permitted through the LDC for mixed-use zoning designations with the submittal of a minor parking study. With that parking study they did submit for those specific requests with the current iteration, they were able to justify the shared parking with the uses on site having different peak parking times. And additionally, with the office spaces, they were adhering to the conditions of approval listed in the administrative use permit 2120 by utilizing those 45 spots for some of their office parking. With the site regulations, they are requesting, instead of adhering to the 10-foot build to line, they're requesting 45 for the easements that are present on site. With the overall floor space being the total building area of the proposed development, it has increased from the 1.9% to 4.5%, but the makeup of the ground floor is, I believe, 20.63% of the ground floor area when excluding garages. They provided very lush landscaping in their proposed landscaping plan. So they're, per the PAD, they are required to use the Desert Museum trees along Market. They are utilizing that, but just to make sure it's not a monotonous street frontage, they integrated some other trees, such as the red push pistache, and I believe there's some southern live oaks. Also in the palisade, pedestrian palisade throughout the parking field, it provides connectivity to Novell through the site And through the main corridor of that, it will be lined with thornless mesquite trees, the orangey red colors that you see at the main intersection of those areas. Those are going to be red push pistache. And then on each of the parking islands, those are also southern live oak trees. For the elevations, they're broken up, and in this presentation, in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see that I provided a context map since there are 3 buildings. So for building 1, which is the one closest to the VA hospital or the westernmost building, that one, the elevations you're going to be seeing are the ones that are facing Market Street, and the one that would be facing interior to the main entrance drive aisle. So you see the integration of some of the stone veneer along that goes up the center of the building with the red ochre accent colors, and there's various types of CMU block, whether it's integrated, split face integrated, or ground face, or using warm neutral undertone color to paint the stucco, and various articulations in the roof line just to create some visual interest. This is building 2. So this is the only building being proposed that is 100% residential in its makeup of use. And this is also the primary site of all of the, not all, but most of the amenities that are being provided for the residential tenants, including like the pools, fitness center, barbecues, and games that would be in that center courtyard. And again, they're repeating that motif that was shown on building 1 with the varying articulations, that ochre red, and the different CMU and stone elements on the facade. And yet again, this is the building 2, but this is the side where all the parking garages are, and you'll see different types of the CMU block facing there. I believe it is the ground face that is going to be lining the pillars between the garages themselves. And then lastly, this is the northeasternmost building that has a mix of the office and the residential units as well, continuing to repeat that motif just to create a cohesive look throughout the development. And for more specifics, these are the materials and colors that are being utilized. And then just looking for general feedback on the proposed site design.
Okay, thank you very much, Sandra. Does anybody want to kick off any comments or concerns? Commissioner Davis, I see you reaching for that mic.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sandra. I think my comments really relate to the elevations more than anything else. In looking at this, there's a lot of interesting architecture out in that area. Some, creativity going on. I didn't feel like this is screaming very modern or it just seems very, it's a little dated in my mind. The cornices they seem kind of bulky and a little, I don't know, they don't really seem to fit. And then the use of the split face isn't my favorite either. I feel like there's a lot of interesting building materials out there. Maybe don't just go with all masonry and stucco, that we could introduce something else and make this feel a little bit more updated. And then those areas, and I think you highlighted this in the staff report, those areas where it's the light beige stucco and you've just got the small windows, those are really blank. When you look at it in the 3D rendering, you can really see how blank that is. And again, in those renderings, it kind of highlights that maybe some additional materiality might be good. Those are my comments.
Chair and Commissioner, thank you. I do have photos. So the applicant was gracious enough to invite us to go look at 2 of their projects, one in Tempe and then one in their Midtown Phoenix location. And they used some of the materials in the Midtown Phoenix one. I have a couple photos at the end of the presentation if you want me to go to them.
Sure, you can share them with me and I can take a look at them before this comes back.
And so right here is that stone veneer that you see near the bottom of it, near the entrance, and very similar tone for that beige, the 2 beiges, the light and the slightly darker one. And then they're not using that wood paneling on our site.
Do we have where you see because you kind of have a sandstone color on there in some of that masonry work, is that incorporated in this as well?
So there were some differences between the sites. I
Sure.
think they were trying to make it so each of their sites were a little bit different from each other. So those ones are using more of like a red brick versus this one being like more of a darker, more neutral color palette.
Okay,
And then when compared to the Tempe one, that one is even darker overall, like they have like the darker browns, darker grays, different types of like stone materials in there. So I think this one was them trying to find like a middle ground between the two, but this is me inferring.
okay. Can you go back to that, one of those photos that showed that center section? So is that a stone on the front of that?
Correct, that is the stone veneer material.
And then you've got kind of a metal piece on there that we don't have anything like that. It just seems like maybe some of those details could be worked out and improve this a little bit, make it a little more interesting, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Davis, sorry, I blanked out there. Anyone else? Commissioner Simon, you look. Commissioner Simon, thank you.
Thank you, Senator, for the presentation. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the applicant going a little bit further with regards to the ground floor and the additional office space or retail space, depending on what that looks like. And I can understand, I'm going to call it Building 2, which is the building in the corner. I don't see building numbers on here, but I almost feel as though that, I mean, that being requested that is 100% residential with no retail in it or no shared space with regards to retail office. I almost feel like that area that faces the large parking lot could almost be used as either office or retail, or we could do some type of, I see that they've got a rec center, a fitness center for the leasing of that building, which I'm assuming is for the residents, but maybe even open that up to one of the big chains to be able to lease space for a full bottom floor gym that caters to more than just the residents of this location. But other than that, I would agree. I feel like a lot of the developments that we're seeing with these multifamilies are coming in much less attractive, I guess is probably what I would use, than some of the product I'm seeing in other areas, even from the same developers. And I don't know if we've got specific requirements within the town of Gilbert that makes it a little bit more tough to be, a little more interesting, should I say, with the look. But outside of that, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with the reduced parking that they're requesting. I think with the mixed use large on here, that you're going to see a shared parking that's going to ebb and flow, and it almost feels like an over park situation on this as it sits. So, but I would kind of almost encourage to kick around the can of that middle building, the second building on the corner. Is there a possibility of having some retail that faces that large lot? So.
Chair, Commissioner, thank you for the feedback.
Thank you, Commissioner Simon. Anyone else? Vice Chairman Fay?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for the applicant for coming tonight. Last time when this came forward, I had, the two problems I had were the parking deviation or not deviation, but the rounding down. And the amount of commercial, or how much we were lowering the amount of commercial and what should be a mixed use. It's not that I'm against shared use of parking, it's that I've seen it abused so much in the past. And now it's I think if I remember, it's under 2% reduction, which is nominal. That's a rounding error anyway. I hesitate a little bit because the shared use is people who leave during the day and people who come to work during the day, except we're only got 4% commercial. It's not like the 20%. If it was 20%, this would be a non-issue at all. I still think 2% is probably fine. I haven't gone into the details or anything, but ordinarily 2% would be fine because it's so little commercial that you're joint using. But all right, it's probably still fine, and so I don't have an objection to that. Going from, I think what it was like 1% commercial to 4% commercial, when it really needs a minimum of 20% commercial. It's certainly going the right direction. It's more palatable, and it is a more, not as great of a location to be. On the other hand, doesn't that make an argument for why they should just rezone multifamily and bag the joint use. I assume that there's other benefits they're pulling out that I haven't looked into. So it's still a little bit of a heavy lift. It's not as heavy a lift, and it may have crossed into the marginally acceptable range of a downward deviation. But those were my two objections. So the parking is probably gone, and the percent commercial is kind of like maybe barely making it, but maybe a little bit of an but certainly less of an objection than it was before, okay?
Chair Blunt, Commissioner, thank you.
Okay, anyone else like to follow up? Vice Chairman Fay? Commissioner? No? Okay, I'll just say that I remember this from the last meeting with the parking issues, and, for myself, not to, of course, go against Commissioner Davis, but I actually thought it looked kind of cool in the pictures. Those little windows are kind of, I don't know, penitentiary-y, but nonetheless, I'm not here to comment directly on that, just from an appeal standpoint. I think that tucked back behind Winco and, the highway there, it is a interesting location, and, it does seem to have moved quite a ways in the right direction, so I think it's a good move. Anything else officially from us that you need, Sandra?
I think, given the circumstances of the presentation for the design review, I think this was excellent feedback, and it is much appreciated.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Okay, with that will conclude the 4 items that were on our study session, and we will move to item number 5, discussion of the regular meeting agenda. I'm sure you've all had ample time to pore over the many items we have this evening. It looks like on the consent, we have items 9, the district at Higley, 10 was tabled, I see. Question for clarification on item 10, Ashley, is both of them tabled or just the zoning?
Chairman, both items will be
Okay.
tabled. Thank you.
Okay. And then item 11, the Higley and Warner NWC. Then on non-consent, we have item 12, Sheffield Place, 13, BC Park, 14, Tuscany at Gabrielle Point, and 15, Val Vista and Elliott Storage. So within those, any commissioners have any desires on consent that things need to be pulled off, or conversely, if things not currently there should be put on?
Chairman, if I may, staff would like to request that item number 13 be moved to non-consent. Oh, it already is on
It is?
non-consent. Ignore me.
Yeah. Your wish is my command, Ashley. I've taken care of it. Okay. Commissioner Anderson?
If we do any opposition to putting 15 on consent, the DR case?
I was gonna mention the same thing.
If Vice
None.
Chairman seems okay with it, I think we're pretty good. Okay. So we can then move item 15, and the rest we leave as is?
I also thought item 12 was fairly straightforward. I don't know if anyone has any objections on 12.
No.
No, okay.
And I'll also ask in the public whether anyone's here to speak on that prior to the movement. Are you here to speak on number 12? Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I should enter this in public record. Elena, she's an attorney. She's going to get mad at me. I'll tell you what, I'm going to close this because we were just discussing it, and then we'll open the real meeting, and I'll chat with you and we can coordinate.
So based on what we talked about, no,
Let's not, no. We will just reconvene, and we can rehash that at that point, so. Okay, with that, I will adjourn the work session, and we will see you all back here in 20 minutes for the real deal. Thank you. Okay, it's now past 6 o'clock, and I am going to call the regular meeting to order. First order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join with me. Thank you very much, and this is my first ask of Ashley in an official meeting since I missed the last one. For a roll call, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Alternate Commissioner Wong. Alternate Commissioner Lyon. Commissioner DeGravina.
Here.
Commissioner Gage.
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Simon.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah.
Vice Chairman Fay.
Here.
Chairman Munt.
Present.
Commission, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on now, we will do the approval of the agenda, and just to make everyone aware that in the study session, we had discussed the possibility of moving item 15 to consent, but we will not. We have a individual here to speak on that, so that will stay the same. Was there another one we were going to discuss? Do you remember?
We talked about it, but there was other people on the council who didn't
Okay.
feel it was as, so no.
Okay, so things shall remain as written. Okay, item 7 then, communications from citizens. At this time, members of the public may comment on matters within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission.
Chair, do we need to take a motion on the agenda?
To leave it as is?
I didn't know if leaving it we had to. Okay. Yes, Commissioner Simon, great catch, thank you. Do I have a
I would
motion?
make a motion I would move to approve the agenda as written.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, please cast. Does it say not voted 5? Who are the other 5 people? That's funny. I've never seen that. But the voting 7-0 motion passes. Those 5 phantoms don't exist. Please disregard those on the bottom. It's halfway cut off on the screen anyway, so. Oh, so it's still scheduled as the council. That's okay. Let it be so. All right. Now we shall move to item number 7, communications from citizens. At this time, members of the public may comment on matters within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. The commission may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to state law, action taken as a result of this public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration. And I just wanted to clarify, this is for citizen input that is to discuss things not on the agenda. I do not have any comment cards. Is there anyone here who wish to speak at the meeting about something not on the agenda? Okay, not seeing anyone. Very well. Moving right along to item number 8, the report from council liaison on current events. Council member Lyons.
I would just like to bring the attention that beginning here shortly, we'll be putting up the military recognition banners throughout the Heritage District, and they'll be there through the Independence Day holidays. So I would encourage you, if you run into a veteran, when you thank them for their service, also ask them about their service and kind of let them know that we care about what they're doing and appreciate their efforts. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Very important, and something I think that makes Gilbert very unique, what we do. So I think that's great. Into the public hearing consent. All items listed below are considered the public hearing consent calendar. The commission may, by a single motion, approve any number of items where, after opening the public hearing, no person requests the item to be removed from the consent calendar. Such a request is made, the commission shall then withdraw the item from the public hearing consent calendar for the purpose of the public discussion and separate action. Other items on the agenda may be added to the consent calendar and approved under a single motion. We left the consent calendar as it is, and that consists of item 9, DR 24-145, the district at Higley, item 10, GP 24-07, KB Homes at Cordillera, and Z 24-19, KB Homes at Cordillera, and that's been tabled, so that'll remain there to be tabled. And DR 2506, NWC, Higley and Warner. Is there anyone here who had any reason that they did not want those on the consent calendar or wish to speak on those? Okay, not seeing any, I will open up then to a motion on consent.
And sir, if we can take item 10 separately, it will need a motion to be tabled.
Oh, it can't just be accepted as written as tabled? Okay. Then we will not take the consent calendar as it is. We will take the consent calendar solely of either item 9 and 11 or do item 10 first, whichever thusly you are inclined.
Chairman Munt, I move to approve the consent calendar with regards to consent calendar with regards to items 9 and 11, leaving item 10 off this motion.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner DeGravina with the second. Okay, please cast your vote.
My button to accept the vote is not on the screen.
Awesome. Not to fear, we have the hardest working IT man in show business. We'll be backing up in no time.
Yeah.
There we go. Motion carries 7-0. Now I will entertain a motion for the tabling of item 10.
Chairman Munt, I move to table item 10.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Do we have a second? We have a second from Commissioner Anderson. Please cast your vote. Motion carries on the tabling 7-0, unanimous. Thank you very much. Now, on to the next item, public hearing, non-consent. The non-consent public hearing items will be heard at an individual public hearing and will be acted upon by the commission by a separate motion. During these public hearings, anyone wishing to comment in support or in opposition to a public hearing item may do so. If you wish to comment on a public hearing item, you must fill out the public comment card, which are the yellow cards in the back, indicating the item number on which you wish to be heard. Once the hearing is closed, there will be no further public comment unless requested by a member of this commission. First item that we have on non-consent this evening, item 12, GP 24-06 Sheffield Place minor GP and Z 24-17 Sheffield Place and Ms. Nicole. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Commission. Nicole Russell, Senior Planner. Tonight, I will be presenting the GP 2406 and Z 2417 for Sheffield Place. The applicant is requesting a minor general plan amendment to change the land use designation from residential 8 to 14 dwelling units per acre to residential 5 to 8 dwelling units per acre, and a rezone with a PAD from multifamily low to single-family detached. Also with the PAD, there are two proposed deviations, one for the allowance of two-story homes along the northern boundary and the allowance of 62% retention on the front of the property where 50% is allowed. Here is an aerial map of the parcel. The property is located approximately a third of a mile to the southeast of the intersection of Gilbert Road and Civic Center Drive. Here's the zoning map showing the surrounding area, which is predominantly residential, single-family. You've got SF-35, which is the Lawrence Institute for Education to the south. You've got residential neighborhood to the east, and you've got the Wyatt Apartment Complex to the north. And on the other side of Gilbert Road, you've got three different neighborhoods that are a mixture of SF-8 and SF-6. Here's the development plan. The red box shows the deviation request for lots 1 through 24 to be 2-story. This is a result of a portion of the code that states that any residential development that is adjacent to the high-density multifamily is limited to 1 story in size. The applicant is proposing 2 stories throughout the development for cohesion of the design. The applicant is also requesting the 62% retention on the front of the property, where the 50% is allowed per the code. Here is the project data table showing that even though the zoning district, the SF D, allows for 3 stories, the applicant will be limiting the development to 2 stories, and they're requesting the 62% retention on the front of the property. Here's the single-family parking plan. I know that when I brought the cases to study session back in December, some of the concerns from staff were the on-street parking, the location of amenities and open space, and I know the commission was concerned about the possibility of 3-story homes adjacent to the residential development to the east. The applicant, as previously stated, has agreed to limit the proposed homes to 2-story, and the main amenity site has been moved to the central portion of the development, as well as the line of homes here was flipped their orientation, which actually provided 10 additional spaces within the development on non-trash days, and the landscaping is meeting the code at 18%. Here's the entry gate and proposed monument signage and the colors and materials for that gate and entry monument. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting on June 20th of 2024. It was a virtual meeting. Staff was the only member of the public that was at the meeting. And since the writing of the staff report, staff has received 7 letters of support from neighbors in the area and 6 letters of support from businesses within the area. Should the commission choose to forward a approval recommendation to the town council as stipulated in the staff report, staff recommends approval and is open to any questions or comments, and the applicant is available for any questions as well. This completes my presentation.
Very well. Thank you, Nicole. Anyone have any questions, or do we want to have the applicant come up and do a presentation? If you have questions for Nicole first, we can do that too. Commissioner DeGravina, did you?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Are these all 2 stories, each one of these homes?
Chair Munt, Commissioner DeGravina, yes, sir. They will all be 2-story homes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, does the applicant want to come up and present?
I believe he does.
Very well, thank you. You can go to this podium right there, sir, and then the same thing, you hit the button on the base of the platform there.
Evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Greg Davis with iPlan Consulting, here on behalf of Continental Properties, the current owner of the property, and K. Hovnanian Homes, who's the applicant. And we do have a full presentation that I'd be glad to go through. However, if there was just a specific item someone had questions about, I don't want to waste 25 minutes of your time with that. So I'll leave it at the discretion of the P&Z. Glad to just answer questions, or we can talk about the whole project, whatever you prefer.
Okay, thank you, sir. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant or have any interest in the possibly 20 to 25-minute presentation? Okay. Yeah. Oh, Commissioner Davis, please.
On the fire sprinkler question, because it looks like you still just have the one point of entry, so all of these homes are going to have fire sprinklers? Is that still the case on this one?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Davis, that is correct. So part of the provision of getting the fire marshal's approval of the project is that every home will be sprinklered.
Okay. And that property on the east side that's kind of landlocked, tucked into this development, they're still not willing to consider being incorporated into this? You've gone down that road?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Davis, that is a very long answer I can give to that, but I'll give you the highlights. So that property is still owned by Stanley Torgeson, who was the owner of the original property from the late 90s. He passed away probably about 10 years ago now, and the property still lists in his name. It's been in litigation. The family didn't even know it was there. It was an illegal lot split that was made a long time ago. So that property, unfortunately, we haven't ever been able to get a hold of somebody that has control of it. And our understanding is that one day it will be available to one of the family members, but there's so many litigations going on with his business enterprises that it may take some time. So right now it's an illegal lot split. It has no legal access. It's a horrible situation for whoever ends up opening it. So whatever happens, whether it's a current project, our project, or future project, it's really important that we do a public access easement to that, which is part of what we're doing here. So this project will actually improve the use of that property. And ultimately, we've designed it so that it could accommodate a residential house. Now, it's zoned SF 35. Obviously, it's not 35,000 square feet. It's only about 5,000 square feet. So it makes a lot of sense if the ownership would incorporate it as part of this project, but we don't control that, obviously. So ultimately, it'll have access, and so whoever owns it can develop a single-family home on it, or at least have access to it. That's the best answer I can give you, unfortunately.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
That was a very interesting
Yeah.
part of this, yeah. Anyone else, questions or for both the applicant or for staff?
For the applicant. As far as the housing product and the walls, the design of the walls and those kind of things, at what stage will those be reviewed and approved? Is the housing product administrative, I guess, or is it when there's a pre-plat coming through? I just kind of want to confirm, because
Sure.
with this being a PAD and needing to be high quality and all of these two-story homes in here, that the quality is going to be really important on a project like this.
Sure. Again, through the commissioner and our chairman, Commissioner Davis, the product that is being transferred over here is currently being built in Chandler, and that's what's available on the slide right there. So we had the opportunity to have staff out there and see it and get an experience of what that's like, just to help set the stage. But the pre-plat is on schedule to be in front of this group on June 4th. So that'll be that. I don't believe the product's part of that. I think that's a separate submittal process. But by us including these elevations in the presentation as part of the PAD, we're setting that expectation of the quality that KHAB's going to be building on this property.
With the fact that some of these homes end up being really visible, you've got big swaths of homes that are looking at the back of the other homes. Is there additional attention that will be given to the second floor of those backs of those homes so that they're not looking at blank elevations? Will those be an upgraded elevation? I guess those are some of the things
Okay.
I'm curious about.
And unfortunately, you know, I don't have that answer for you because it's still the zoning stage, but I think you're voicing your
voicing my
expectation.
position on
And
that,
the
yeah.
client is here listening, so I can expect that you'll see some of that when it comes back to the town for approval.
You know, it all kind of ties to the PAD and whether or not the quality of this, and I think that all lends itself to that, so I think it would have been helpful to kind of have some of that information for this, or to have some of those assurances, so, because that is a concern for me, that we end up with something that in, 20, 30 years, this is still going to be a high-quality development when you're, putting in homes so close together, two-story, they can, and then we have, the concern with the parking on the streets and the narrower road width, some of those things that can really deteriorate a subdivision very quickly, a neighborhood very quickly. So that's kind of where I'm at on this, is I'm trying to determine, is this still going to be a great neighborhood years to come? Is this going to be able to sustain itself as something that's quality and someplace people are still going to want to live
Sure.
in the future? So.
And all we can say to that is, obviously, Canadian has a reputation for building quality. They're still in business in the valley. I think Gilbert is probably one of the more difficult places to get product approved because of their level of design that they incorporate in the livability. So I would say that you can rely on staff to make sure that whatever gets approved here from a design standpoint, whether you see it or not, is going to, stand the test of time.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner DeGravina?
Yeah, I've got some of the same concerns that Wendy has. It seems like it's a fairly crowded development. You got two-car garages, and then you have parking in the driveway. Is there restricted parking on the streets at night? And there's some restrictions where they can't park, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner, so there's no restrictions other than like recycling, trash day. Everything else works as a public street. So it's designed to accommodate up to 51 cars on a trash day and 61 without it. And I think it's important to recognize that the SFD category has specific rules related to guest parking because this is a known issue. And the requirement for this project is 180 spaces. We provide 185 without counting any of the driveways or the extra 10 spaces. So when you count those, we have over 300 spaces for guest parking, which far exceeds most SFD neighborhoods. So we're really not expecting it to be a dense project. And as far as the density is concerned, the SFD, allows a lot more density here, 3,000 square foot minimum lots. We're coming in at about 3,850. We could do 3 stories. We're coming in with 2 stories. We're meeting the open space regulations. So, and we're reducing the number of homes by 40% over what's approved today. So I think that may be more of an optics thing than a reality as far as this project.
What percentage of the footprint covers the 4,000 square foot, 4,000 square foot lot? I mean, you got the, I guess you got a range of 2,350 to 2,765 square feet, 2-story, obviously. You have about half, a little bit more than half of that because you got your garages down below that. You don't have a lot of space left for maybe pools and patios and expanded backyards or for play areas for kids and things of that sort. It seems like, again, it seems a little bit crowded for that size house and that small of a square foot lot.
And Mr. Chairman and Commissioner, that is the point of the SFD. It's not meant to be a typical lot where you have, every home has a pool in the backyard. It's meant to provide a level of density and intensity that you want and need in your urban core, but still allow a single-family type of experience. And so that's why the SFD standards, which are on the slide there, we're not exceeding any of those. In fact, we have more room than what's necessary. So from a lot coverage standpoint, you're allowed to have 50% lot coverage. And we're not going to exceed that. I don't know where we're going to be at, but we're going to be probably 40 to 50%, but we're compliant with those regulations, and that's what we felt the standard was to meet.
Again, it just seems a little bit crowded. No, thank you.
Understood.
Thank you, Commissioner DeGravina. Anyone else? Okay. And I don't have any public comment cards. Was anyone here wishing to speak on this item? Okay, I don't see any. So then I will close the public hearing and bring it up to the dais then for any discussion or a motion. would like to point out that Commissioner DeGravita did say Wendy, and it's actually Leslie, so I just wanted to point that out. Yeah. Any comments from commissioners or?
Chair, I'm not seeing any comments, so I'll go ahead and attempt a motion to recommend approval of GP 24-06 and Z 24-17 Sheffield Place. Oh, do we have to do separate? Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve, make a motion to recommend approval of GP 24-06.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Commissioner Gage with the second. Please, or is there any other discussion? Otherwise, please cast your vote when ready. Motion carries 5-2.
Chair, I'll follow up with a motion on Z 24-17 Sheffield Place to recommend approval of finding of facts and recommend approval to Town Council.
We have a motion from Commissioner Simon. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Gage with the second. Any discussion? And if not, please cast your vote when ready. That motion too carries 5-2. Thank you very much. On to the next item, item number 13, GP 2404, BC Park, and Z 24-16, BC Park. And Ms. Sandra.
Good evening again, Chair and Commission. I'm here to present on GP 2404 and Z 2416 BC Park. This was previously seen in the last study session of April's Planning Commission meeting. Today, the request is to approve GP 2404 with the provided conditions in the staff report, and also for the approval, it's GP 2404 and Z 2416 with the conditions in the staff report, with an amended condition to item 10, which can be found on page 10 of your report, regarding dedications and abandonments for streets such as Sparrow Court, with an amended condition that I will go over at the end of this presentation. For the context of the site, this site is located on Power Road, just south of Galveston and north of Williamsfield Road. It is currently zoned business park, and it is within the Gateway Point Industrial PAD. And it also has a general office zoning designation. As part of this general plan request, the applicant is requesting to change the land use classification of approximately 4.0 acres of the easternmost portion of the BC Park plan to general commercial. And this will feed into the zoning request to rezone those 4 acres to community commercial in order to better serve the existing office and that other portion, the western portion of the BC Park. There is a requested deviation for this site, requesting a 0-foot reduction for landscaping when the property line is an internal parking lot or a driveway. As this time, I have not received comments regarding this item from the public. There was a neighborhood meeting held on May 9th of 2024 prior to the submittal of this project, and I believe no residents attended that one. And again, the request brought forth today for the approval of GP 2404 and Z 2416 is for the approval of the conditions provided in the report with the amended condition of item number 10. Currently, it speaks to the dedication to Gilbert for Tulsa, right-of-ways, Oak Court, and Sparrow Court. We're requesting that condition to be amended to the effect that It reads, "Staff and the applicant shall work towards a condition of approval language that is mutually agreeable and reach an agreement prior to the town council meeting." Due to, from the time the report was written and when the packet was published to this meeting, there have been discussions regarding that specific condition between staff and the applicant. And we want to ensure that we can come to a conclusion that, as stated in the condition language, is mutually agreeable and achieves the means that protects the interests of the town and will not be detrimental to the proposed development that is currently in its DER review. And that concludes staff presentation.
All right, thank you very much, Sandra. Does anybody want comments for Sandra now, or should we do the applicant? Okay, is the applicant here and wish to speak, do you know? Oh,
The applicant is present and able to answer questions.
okay. You can come up, sir.
Hello again, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Greg Davis with iPlan Consulting, office located here in Gilbert. And yes, we had reached out to staff trying to resolve some of the right-of-way technical questions, and the way the stipulation was read, we just had some concern about. And so we asked for a little more time to work that out before finalized. So staff was available to accommodate our request. And so we are asking that we move forward with that additional language as staff identified. And I really have nothing else more to add, but I'd be glad to answer any questions about the project.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay. And any other, no? All right, well, is there anyone in the public? I do not have any comment cards. Did anybody wish to speak on this item? Not seeing any. Okay, I'll then close the public comment section, bring it to the dais for discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Davis?
I'll make a motion to approve GP 2404 BC Park.
And I'm assuming we do them separate, so we'll do the one. Okay, we have a motion. Commissioner Davis, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Ooh, Commissioner DeGravina did beat the vice chair, so he got the second. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 7-0.
I'll follow up with the second one. I'll make a motion for Z24-16 BC Park.
We have a motion from Commissioner Davis. Do we?
For approval.
Oh, for approval. Approval. Do we have a second?
With conditions, yes.
Chairman, can I just clarify, are we accepting staff's recommended condition change?
I'm willing to accept staff's recommended condition change.
So the
as part of
motion,
that.
so the record reflects the motion is inclusive of said recommendations, please. Okay. With that in mind, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner DeGravina with the second. No discussion, please cast your vote. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you all very much. Next item on the agenda, item 14, Z24-21, Tuscany at Gabriella Point, and everyone's favorite, Mr. Keith Newman.
Chair, I need to recuse myself from this case.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson.
Chair Munt, members of the commission, good evening, and you are too kind, Chairman Munt. My project tonight, the only one I have before you tonight, as you stated, is for Tuscany at Gabriella Point. In the extended yards, it's for the PAD amendment. So before I go into the request, the site is located, as you can see on the screen, at the kind of at that southeast corner of Warner Road and Martingale Road, just west of Higley Road. Excuse me, east. I get east-west directions mixed up all the time. I apologize. So just east of Higley Road. You can see it on the screen. This is part of a larger, it's surrounded by a larger development called the Gabriella Point Commerce Center. But this project is about 39 acres in size, so I'll go over that in just a second. But the request before you tonight is for a PAD amendment to reduce common open space, allowing extended private yards for ground floor units. So this isn't the development plan that's in your packet. It's just a prettier, or not necessarily prettier, but it's a plan that shows you where the extended yard locations are. So just wanted to note that. The proposed site spans the west side of the development spans 19.5 acres and is part of a larger 39-acre apartment complex featuring 760 total units across 3- and 4-story buildings. The site has 2 multifamily residential zoning districts. The eastern parcel is zoned multifamily low, with the western portion zoned multifamily medium. The development is governed by conditions and stipulations outlined in the zoning ordinance that was approved on the site as part of a PAD in November of 2022. Please note that in October 2024, staff did approve similar yard extensions for the eastern half of Tuscany at Gabriella Point in the MFL portion, reducing common open space from 48% to 46%, which is still above the minimum 45% that is required for that zoning district. So the proposed PAD amendment is, as I already stated, is requesting uncovered ground floor yard extensions adjacent to covered patios. That they will be classified as private open space per the town for all ground floor units, and this will total a total of 137 extended yard areas for these 137 ground floor units. Per the plan in front of you, the proposed extended yard locations, like I said, are illustrated in blue. I do want to mention that, actually, no, I'm not going to mention that. I'll mention that later. So the proposed extended yards, here's a diagram that kind of shows you a kind of a pretty picture, an artist's rendering of what they will look like. These yards will be surrounded by 4-foot tall view fencing, expanding the private open space for residents. It'll expand it up to 3 feet, up to 7 feet in some places, into areas that are currently common open space, that are accessible to all residents, and that are currently they have landscaping in those spaces, or in this case, will have landscaping, as the MFM portion of the development is still under construction. I'm sure you have driven by, and you have seen that the MFL portion on the east side of the development is under construction as well, but there are portions up near Warner Road where the landscaping is complete, the buildings are complete, and you can kind of see those extended yards from Warner Road. I'll show you some pictures in a second. But, so let's compare the approved condition, as I stated, as the top graphic shows the extended yards as they were approved. No extended yards, a bunch of landscaping as common open space, and then you can see the little patios, the overhangs, the private yard space. You can kind of see people sitting there. And then you have the extended yard area where the extended yards will go, and then a person on the sidewalk. The below graphic shows kind of like I said earlier, an artist rendering of where those extended yard spaces are proposed to go. Now, this is an artist rendering of like best case scenario. And like I stated, they're about 3 to 7 feet in distance. There are no changes to the site plan, the building design, the unit count, the traffic, parking, or infrastructure on the site. except for adding, really the only change is to add these 4-foot-tall view fences for extended yards. So I'm going to show you what these yard spaces will really look like. These are pictures that we had taken of the finished units in the MFL portion of the development. So they already have these, like I stated earlier, they already have some of these yard spaces constructed. These particular ones are the south side of the buildings up along Warner Road that you can't see from the street right now. But these spaces are actually kind of small in these pictures, about 3 feet of space extended from their actual concrete patio from their porches. And then they're about 2 feet, in this picture is about 2 feet away from the sidewalk. The next picture is just a different view of that. You can see the sidewalk, and the fences in relationship to the sidewalk and the parking spaces. The fencing is kind of a wire mesh type fencing, little small squares where kids can't put their hands through, dogs can't put their noses through, things like that. This is a view of a fence along Warner Road that I took a picture of. I jaywalked across Warner Road and took these pictures, just so you know. And so this one is kind of a little bit larger space. There are some of these along Warner. Those are the largest spaces. The rest of them, and some of them along Warner and Martingale are fairly large, some of the spaces, but the ones on the interior next to the parking lots are much, much smaller. So there's a limited number of the larger spaces. And here's another view of what those kind of larger extended yards look like. And this is also along Warner Road. And the applicant is proposing similar sized extended yards along Warner Road that you see in these pictures. So as you know from reading the staff report, staff is not recommending approval of this case, as we have several concerns with the applicant's request. The first, as stated earlier, is that the development is governed by conditions and stipulations outlined in the zoning ordinance established through the PAD that was approved in November of 2022. That allowed for increased building heights on a limited number of buildings within the MFM portion of the development only. And that brought the total open space that was approved by town council to 43%, where 40% is required by code. With the applicant's request, they are proposing to remove or take away the additional 3% landscaping, which was approved as a trade-off for their deviations to allow additional height on several of the buildings. And that is to propose these extended yards. Unlike the MFM portion, the MFL portion of the development on the east side was not subject to additional open space requirements or trade-offs for deviations or additional building height. Upon approval of the extended yards in the MFL portion, staff specifically advised the applicant that similar yard extensions would not be supported for the MFM side due to prior negotiated conditions and conditions that were approved by council as a trade-off for deviations. So that's our first concern. Second concern is with the proposed extended yards along Warner and Martingale roads, 13 of which encroach into the required 30-foot building setback along those street frontages. And I have this close-up graphic that shows you where that building setback is. And I highlight in blue the extended yard spaces that encroach into those building setbacks, and there are 13 of them. The LDC has no provisions permitting private open space or related fencing within building setbacks. Additionally, the reduction of building setbacks along the north and east property boundaries has not been specifically included as part of the applicant's request or nor advertised to the general public. The applicant must reduce the size of these yards to comply with the building setback requirements if you as a planning commission, if it's ultimately approved. While the definition for a building in the LDC states an exception is allowed for walls and fences, it clearly says that, staff has consistently ruled that this applies only to perimeter walls and fences, not elements considered extensions of the building, such as these proposed extended yards, which we consider as extensions of the building. Staff also considers this fencing equivalent to railings, which are fences surrounding private balconies and private open space on upper floors. which are also extensions of the building. Sometimes you see them just attached to the side of the building with, sometimes they have a little roof over them. That's how we consider these ground floor yards as well, as the fencing as extensions of the building, just like patios on the second, third, and fourth stories of a building, which cannot encroach into a building setback. The last concern that we have is that in approximately 21 locations, the extended yards will back up to the sidewalks that are next to a parking lot. And you can see that in the picture in front of you here on your screen, leaving only about 2 feet of separation between the fence and the sidewalk. This limited space further reduces privacy and restricts the planting of required landscape materials between the sidewalk and the extended yard fencing, which per the Land Development Code must be placed in a minimum 3-foot wide planter bed. Since these are extensions of the building, these fenced yard areas, that 3 feet of landscaping is required. And in 21 locations, they have not met that and are proposing only 2 feet or less, and might be a tiny bit less in some spots, maybe 1 feet 9 inches in some spots. So this additional landscaping helps buffer the yards from the sidewalk and the nearby parking spaces. And you can see on the red line there that I've also highlighted that as well. So you can see in this photo that there's not much space between that sidewalk and that fence, and those extended yards are actually very, very small. Staff does not believe those yard spaces are very functional. Maybe to have a dog walk in them, and that's about it, and so forth. As far as public participation is concerned, I wanted to make a note of a mistake in the staff report. The neighborhood meeting was actually held on January 29th, not November 20th of 2024. And 2 residents or surrounding property owners attended the meeting, and they had general questions and concerns and concerning the request and seemed to be fairly supportive. Staff, since that neighborhood meeting and since the writing of the staff report, has not had any neighbors or surrounding properties reach out to us. Just wanted to make that note. So that kind of concludes my presentation. So staff is recommending, for reasons in the staff report that are listed in your report and per the conditions, we move to recommend denial to the town council for this request. As stated in the report, if you as a planning commission are inclined to recommend approval, then the conditions in the report reflect development of the site and the deviations requested by the applicant, and that will be adopted per an ordinance. Please note we have added 2 conditions at the end of your report, conditions P and Q, which would address the encroachment of the extended yards into the building setbacks along Martingale Road and along Warner Road, and also the additional landscaping that is needed next to the sidewalks in between the extended yard fences, in between the fences and the sidewalks. That is the end of my presentation, so I would be open for questions if you have any for me. And the applicant from Pugh and Lake is also here, Reese Anderson, and I'm sure he has a presentation as well. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Keith. Anyone have questions for Keith and Commissioner Davis?
Thank you, Chair. I do have a question for Keith. Those areas where they have the granite, it looks like the landscape material hasn't changed. Is there potential that, and maybe you don't know, maybe the applicant can address this, it seems like in some of the areas they're fairly large and somebody might put a patio table out there or want to put in pavers or some of those things to make it more usable. I guess that's something, I'm guessing staff's not supportive of that, but I could see that potential. So I don't know if you know anything about that or if that's something the applicant could address.
Chair Munt, members of the commission, I don't know a lot about that from what the applicant is planning to allow in those spaces. So you'll have to ask that question of them. But from a staff perspective, we are highly concerned with the types of things that could be placed in those yards. Tables, chairs, couches. I'm sure the applicant will have a better answer. There might be CC&Rs that restrict certain things, but we are concerned with, from furniture and things that will be placed in those yards that the Arizona sun will destroy in no time, and that will make those yards look quite unsightly. And weeds and things growing in there. I'm sure they'll have maintenance requirements and things, but I'm sure the applicant can add as to exactly what they will allow in those spaces. But we do have concerns with that.
I'm sure the applicant heard that and will address it.
Yes.
Commissioner DeGravina, is your mic on because you wanted to speak, or? Okay. So Keith, one question that I have, and this might be too ambiguous, but can you give me an understanding of when the original other side of this was done, and this was negotiated in the MFL and MFM, I think, the differentiator, but when these trade-offs were happening, was it known in the other ones that these types of side yards were going to be on, now I'm talking about the other side. And if so, when they brought it in, did they actually have that and staff took it and said, hey, no, this is too much? What was, I guess, whatever you can speak to on that for some clarity for me, I would appreciate it.
Sure. Chairman, members of the commission, upon the approval of the original PAD in November of 2022, staff, and when we agreed to the deviations and the trade-offs for the deviations, we had no knowledge of these future patio extensions. It was not communicated to staff that that was going to be something they would add in the future. As far as the MFL side, like I stated in my presentation, it's quite a bit different since they were originally approved with about 48% open space. The patios reduced it down to about 46% open space, so we were okay with that. And as far as the landscaping and things in between the sidewalks and those spaces, that was kind of an oversight by staff, allowing the 2 feet instead of the 3 feet. But no, to answer your question, we did not know that they were going to be proposing these extended yards when they came in for zoning. If we would have known about this and that we would have asked for a different trade-off, or we would have asked for another unique site element or project design element to offset the fact that the landscaping was going to be more towards 40%. We would have had a different trade-off to be able to review and approve. But that didn't happen, so I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and then just on the other one that's currently constructed, do they have all of these little ones on the inside as well?
Chairman, members of the commission, yes, these little ones are on the inside, adjacent to the parking lot.
Okay.
They're not on the outsides, like along Warner Road or along the eastern property boundary. They're on the inside. I didn't count how many there are that are on the inside that are small like this. I'm assuming it's probably similar numbers to the other project, which is about 21 or so. So I'm assuming it's about the same.
Okay. All right, very good. Anyone else have questions for Keith before? Commissioner Gage? Oh, Vice.
Thank you, Chair. So Keith, and maybe I missed it, but can you tell me how many total patios they're looking for? How many would be removed for condition P, and how many would be removed for condition Q, and what's left? And do you have a graphic showing what is left?
Chairman, Commissioner Gage, so the total number of ground floor patios that they're proposing, if my numbers are correct, and the applicant may have more correct numbers, but I think I counted them pretty well, I believe, is 137 ground floor patios would have the extended yards. Now, as far as how many would be left over if they had, based on the I'm really bad at math, by the way. I'm just going to tell you right now. So if you take 137, there's about 13, I believe, if I remember correctly, that would be affected by the setback.
Okay.
Along Warner and Martingale if they had to modify those.
Okay.
And then the smaller ones that are, I know there's people laughing at me that I can't do math. I can hear them.
Ignore them, Keith, it's okay.
Yeah, I will. It's no problem. As far as the patios that are the small 3-foot ones up against the sidewalk, there's 21 of those.
Okay,
So you're looking at about 116 left.
so that, wait, I could also be terrible at math. That's
Oh, I'm really bad.
possible, but I have 103 left over.
Yeah, if you combine them all, I think it's about close to that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Gage. Vice Chairman Fay, did you have something?
Yeah, Keith, this came for study session 1 or 2 or 3 months ago, pretty recently, and it was received pretty negatively by this commission. And it doesn't seem like much, if anything, has changed. What has changed since this came forward at the study session?
Chair Munt, Commissioner Fay, it did come before you on March 5th for study session.
Okay.
And we haven't seen any changes. It's the exact same request. We did provide comments to the applicant on certain things to clarify certain things. We didn't necessarily ask them to change the patio sizes and locations. We just had a lot of clarification and questions. But no, the request is the exact same since March, from the March study session.
And just, again, also to clarify, when we talk about the request is to reduce the open space requirement, it's not to also reduce the height. The height, they want to stay the increased?
Chairman, Commissioner Fay, no, the height of the buildings is staying the same.
So it's not
only to reduce the open space.
It's not to undo the deal that
Correct.
you worked out, it's to undo their part of the deal.
Chair Munt, Commissioner Fay, it's to eliminate the part of the trade-off,
Okay.
the additional 3% of open space.
Okay, I understand.
Commissioner Simon.
I just have one question, because I feel like what this is really splitting hairs on a definition between public open space and private open space, and there's really no open space change. Am I missing something?
Chairman, Commissioner Simon, good. That's a good question. So, even though the area that they're proposing to put these extended yards in, it was classified as common open space. They only have private open space in their patios that are under the roof. And I can go back to a picture and show you that. Thought I had a really good picture. So this is a good picture to illustrate. The only private open space they have now is a minimum 60 square foot patio that's covered. You can see the concrete pad and the door to the shed. That's the only private open space, that they have. Anything outside of those building walls is common open space that's accessible to anybody in the development. And yes, a lot of those common open space areas are not active open space areas. They're not necessarily going to be used to play or to throw a ball or do things like that. But if you look throughout the town, we have a lot of common open space areas that you can't use like that. Parking lot islands, we count them as common open space area, but no one's going to throw a ball in it and play sports in that. A lot of areas up against the building, yes, they're not usable, but we still count them as common open space. The only private open space is the area within their little patio, which is required to be a minimum of 60 square feet. Now, by putting these fences up, they're turning that area that could be accessed by anybody in the community as a benefit to the community in one form or another. You can define what benefit is, right? But now they're taking that and they're making it private open space. Now it's only usable to people who live in that specific unit, and it's not usable for anybody else, even though you can argue that it's usable in the first place. I get that and I understand that. But now they're increasing the private open space and decreasing common open space. Does that make sense? Hope I didn't confuse the situation too badly, but it is private open space and not common anymore.
No, I'm not confused. I'll hold my comments. No, I'm not confused.
I know it's a hard concept to grasp. I get it.
It's not quite as hard as math, but Commissioner Gage, do you have more you'd like to interject here?
I do, if that's okay
Please.
with you. Keith, so if you take out these, 34 patios that are within the setback area and where you need that 3 feet, what is the percentage? Is it still 3% decrease in the overall open space?
Chair Munt, Commissioner Gage, I have not, someone could do that math. I don't know. I don't know the answer to
Okay.
that.
I wasn't trying to like test your math right now. I didn't know if the math had like previously been done.
It may be a little bit less than 3, who knows? I don't know, maybe it's 2.5. I just don't know
Okay, and then.
the answer to that.
2 more things. One, I think that fundamentally how we calculate open space in town is maybe not great, because you're right, no one's throwing a ball in a landscape island. Developers don't even want to put those in. They just do because they have to. And I would rather see usable open space versus non-usable open space and see that change to the code. But that's not about tonight, that's just my own conjecture. But for the east side of the development, where it was overlooked that there would only be a 2-foot narrow planting strip, was it also, do some of those patios also go over the building setback line?
Chairman, Commissioner Gage, I believe there are 2 or 3 of them along Warner Road for that MFL portion that do go over the building setback line.
Okay. Good. So what you're saying is we have allowed it previously, and that was our bad, and so we're not going to allow it again? Okay,
That is correct.
thank you.
But, and just to, if I could clarify, when we allowed it, was it the same, like when they designed it, they said we have these open spaces and they're that, and it went through that way? Or was there any other differentiation between the MFL and MFM that?
Chairman, I believe it was the same. I don't
Okay.
think there was necessarily any differentiation.
Okay,
But like I said, it was an oversight by staff. We're not going to, we don't want to allow it on the MFM piece.
understood. Okay, well, very good. Well, with all of that said, I imagine the applicant would like to present some, if I'm correct. And then we can have more questions or comments following that as well.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Reese Anderson with Pugh and Lake, 1744 South Alvista, number 217 is my address. If I could just get I think here it is. Got it. Thank you. So I heard each of your questions, and I'm happy to take them just in order. Oh, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Veronica. So there we go. That's working. Great. I'm happy to answer those questions right now, but I think if I can just kind of go through the slides quickly, I think I'll address most of those. However, I would welcome your interruption if I miss your question on a particular slide or if I don't circle back to it. If that's a fair approach, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'm going to go quickly where Keith has covered a lot of things. And so again, you know the site. This is Gabriella Point in green. We're talking about Tuscany at Gabriella Point, which we see in red. Our request to you today, just so we're all clear, is to modify stipulation 4H. That's the one that Keith showed, and I'll show it again here in a second. And to be clear, we're asking you to delete stipulations P and Q. And I'll explain why we think that's meritorious. So you might ask, does this appear anywhere else in the town? And the answer is yes. Here on your screen is the crossing project by the same client, Frankel Family Trust. This is at Williamsfield and Wade, and you can see the ground floor have that same screening material, fencing type, with plants that are now growing up and around it. So this exists. It's handled well, and to Commissioner Davis's question, the maintenance and what you can put out there is handled through the rental agreement. And if someone's not keeping their end of the bargain in that rental agreement, enforcement action happens. But we welcome you to go by the crossing and look at those, and you'll see that they're kept clean, they're well-maintained, et cetera. So I think that might answer that question, but I welcome an interruption if necessary. Here's another picture, again, just along Williamsfield and Wade. So I want to talk a little bit about just the background here. Chairman Munt, you asked about the history. Town Council approved the Tuscany at Gabrielle Point case on November 1st of 2022. Then the DRB case was approved on March of 23. And it wasn't until February 28th of 24 that I called Keith Newman and said, we've got this idea. Our client has this approved at the crossings. We'd like to do it here. So at the time of the zoning and DRB case, this wasn't even on my radar, any of our design team's radar. It came to us in early of 24. And then on March 26th, we had a meeting with Ava, Ashley, and Keith to talk about how this could go forward, what it would look like. And we had some of those same pictures that you're seeing today. Since then, we've had ongoing discussions. That's the history, Mr. Chairman, if that answers that question. So I want to talk too just about the history of how we got to Z2204, which was Tuscany. This is the zoning map. The yellow is the vertical development overlay. What that led to in the 22 case was additional height on buildings that you see there, 14, 15, and 16. I was involved in that personally. And the conversation went like this with Noah Schumerth. Reese, we're supportive of the additional height, but you've got additional open space. We want to tie that up with a stipulation. And we said, absolutely, Noah. That's the right thing to do because we promised additional open space with that. So I think it's just wrong, if I could be so bold, to try and make a case today that we're going back on what we promised or we're trying to change the deal. Though that case was in 22, happened, and no one's hiding from it at all. But today, we're sitting here in front of you, and we're just asking the question. The overarching question for everyone is this a good idea? Is this a better experience for the residents that are there? Does it in any way hurt the town overall? And I think the answer is no. There's the stipulation. You saw it, again, that sixth line down. That's what appears in the ordinance 2839 today. And again, our simple request to you is to change that column on the far right to a 40%. But to Commissioner Simon's question, this is a change from a change technically from common to private open space. But it's not a change in the amount of overall landscaping. It's not a change in the overall. This is what we call passive open space. And honestly, everyone, if I'm throwing a ball next to a window right here, or I'm walking in this area on the pictures you saw on the screen from staff, that's grounds for someone calling in a peeping Tom. You just shouldn't be walking in those areas. It's not designed to walk in those areas. The active spaces are elsewhere in these site plans. So I share this slide with you just for context. On the low side, in 22, there was 48% open space. On the medium side, there was 43. You saw this earlier. Again, staff approved in October 22nd of 24, those yards that you saw on the screen that Keith showed, and they exist today. They're being put in. What did that do to the low side? It gave you 46%. Now, Keith's got more up-to-date photos than me. These were taken a week and a half ago. As you could tell, Keith's photos have got more DG put in, et cetera. So I ask for a little bit of grace here as I'm a few days behind on current photos. But this is along Warner. Interior, I've got a nice John Deere tractor there. Keith's pictures had all the DG and the things cleaned up a little bit better. Okay, so here's the crux of it, everyone. What about the west side? What should be our guiding principles? And what are the concerns that the staff have raised? Can we just go through those one by one? And first of all, I would just like to raise the guiding principle of consistency. And when I look at the section 5.4.1F, what it says is provide consistent landscape requirements for similarly situated properties. Is it not the one side versus the other? They should be similar. Does this concept exist in other districts? I direct you to the, this is section of the LDC 310.5J. I'll read the language in yellow. Private open spaces, including but not limited to patios, private yards, courtyards, and balconies, may be counted toward the total required landscape and open space requirement in all mixed-use zone districts. I admit, we're not a mixed-use zoning district. But to say that this concept, this idea is not recognized elsewhere in the code and in the town is not a fair assertion. Today, and we heard you're going into the building setback. Until we saw the staff report, that was the first time the staff have ever raised that issue with us. I would argue that that is just an incorrect reading of the code, plus these are not attached to the building. I would agree with the staff that if I was attaching a wall to the building, it might change its character, but these are not. But look at the highlighted language in red, right out of section 5.29. Maximum height of a wall or fence within the front building setback. Solid open view, 4 feet. It's compliant. The next row down is about the side. We're compliant. This is allowed. And the reason I raise that, we'll get to the stipulations in a minute, is that's just an end run around the opposition to try and just stop these from happening. Again, here's the definition of walls and fences. I highlight or outlined in red. It excludes, or you look at the definition of building, excludes walls and fences. So, what about the open space? We've talked about that a little bit already. These blue areas are shaded are where those extended ground floor yards are proposed. When we do the math, which has been carefully done, we get to 40%. And to shed a little bit more light, commissioners, this side is actually different than the other side. And how is it different? The answer is these are a little bit smaller. Why did you do that, Reese? The answer is obvious, because we wanted to make sure that we didn't cross over the 40% threshold. If we put them in the same size that we have on the low side, we would have crossed over or below, is a better way to put it, the 40%. So we actually tugged and pulled with every inch and square foot we could to make sure that we did not cross below the 40%. Interestingly, when you average both sides together with what we're proposing, I come right back to 43. Now, that's not nowhere in the code, but it's just an interesting fact. A picture showing just an example, that lime green area shows what those will look like. Again, we are not changing the site plan, the building elevations, number of units, traffic, or infrastructure. Here's a picture, again, the staff showed, although I think they inadvertently had some old pictures, because you can see where I just added the fence. Let me toggle front and back. These don't extend as far out as the pictures that were shown earlier. So zooming in, you can see landscaping again here. I don't want anyone to think that this is landscaping that would be adjacent to that fence, would grow up around it, like I showed you at the pictures for the crossing. So coming back to this little comparison chart that I created, our request is to go to 40% common open space. But what's the total open space now of both common and private? Is 43. What's the total open space of common and private after our request? Still 43. Again, our whole project site of technical common open space would still be at 43% if approved by the council. Here's stipulations P and Q, and let me explain. So the box in white is a snip taken directly from the staff report. Stipulation P, a minimum of 3 feet of foundation landscaping must be provided between any sidewalk and the proposed extended yards. It's just not necessary, and the applicable rule is met, and I'll talk about that in just a second. And stipulation Q, we believe, is an improper extension of the existing rule. Again, I showed you that chart earlier, which allows walls and fences to be in the front setback. So, and as you heard the staff say already, if stipulation P and Q are applicable, they shouldn't have been applied over, they shouldn't have allowed it over on the low side. They have, they've admitted a mistake, but I don't even think it's a mistake. I think what's there is permissible under the rules today. I don't think it's necessary to say we made a mistake. I just think it's permissible. And let me show you, again, I showed you that chart earlier, and I can go back to it. But the staff did not give us a citation in the staff report as to where they're getting this 3-foot foundation. I think I found it in the code. It's section 53302 and 03. And let me draw your attention to right under the bold language where it says separation from buildings. Parking spaces shall be separated from a non-residential or multifamily building by one of the following methods. It says separated from the building, right? And so here you're left asking the question, is this private yard attached to the building? The answer is no. And we've already shown you in the chart earlier that these types of walls are allowed in the setbacks. And so to me, the stipulation P and Q are just not necessary. To me, it feels like the staff are saying, hey, we don't like this. We told you not to bring it, but you did it anyhow. So we're going to put some stipulations on you that'll try and mess up as many as we can. At the end of the day, everyone, we look at this and say, is this a good idea or not? Is it an improvement for the residents that are there? And let me share with you that over the crossing, these ground floor units with these extended yards are some of their most popular. In fact, they're able to rent them for a little bit more because they are so popular. And so here, building on that, our client asked us to do the same, and we gave you the history on that. So when you balance all this out, you look at all the guiding principles that we have. To me, I think there's a very rational case that we're consistent on both sides, that we're not violating any of the setbacks or foundation-based requirements, that we're meeting the spirit of the law. We haven't pulled a fast one on anyone. We think it's an overall improvement, and we would love to urge your support. We have no known opposition from anyone except in this room. With that, Mr. Chairman, I've probably babbled too long. I turn it back to you.
No, sir, it was the perfect amount. Thank you. All right, questions for Reese? Or for staff or anything like that? Commissioner DeGravina?
You just said something at the end that you're able to get a little bit more money for those units that have that extended patio. Is that the main reason for doing that, or are there multiple reasons that will benefit the occupant?
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner DeGravina, I think that this client recognizes there's always a business reason behind it. That's one you just have to recognize. But I don't think that's the real reason. I think that they liked the way it looked. And when it came to us in '24, we said, okay, we'll start down that path. But looking over back at the crossing, again, they didn't start out renting them for more money. They just became so popular, that's what they were able to do. So to me, I think I was sharing with you that they're popular in that way, but that's not meant to say that's a determinant factor. To me, I look at it and say my guiding principles are, is this a fair request, and does it look good as an overall benefit for the residents, and does it hurt the town? I'm sorry I belabored the point.
That's a fair explanation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Gage? Jeez, look at that, I just Wendy'd you, Commissioner
I have
Davis.
no identity tonight.
Yeah, you're everyone.
I'm everybody
Like
else.
Whitney, every woman. Okay, thank you.
So I still, going back to those patio areas, in the other development where you've done this, do any of those, how some of these extend out beyond and over to in front of a window that kind of encompasses to the end of the building? Does that happen in that other development where you have that additional space added, like what was just shown there?
So let's, Commissioner Davis, and I know you're not Wendy. We're going to go right back to the pictures at the crossing, correct? I think that's where you were
Correct.
asking. So
That's my question.
I'm getting back there and I'm pushing so fast, it's not keeping up with me. So here's one here. And I'm seeing it around the ground floor patio area, but I don't see it extend to the windows on this one. There's another view.
Okay. I didn't,
Here's the third. So on these three limited ones, I would say that they don't.
okay. With the way that they extend there, I understand that the management company will oversee what goes out there, but what is anticipated will be allowed? Is that an area where a table can go out in front of that window? I mean, because essentially with the granite there, it's still passive open space. It's really not usable. So what is the purpose of extending them way over there?
Yeah.
If they can't put anything out there and it's just DG?
It's a fair question, and the answer is that there's no provision to take that to a solid surface. It's just not allowed. But it does provide a space for, especially residents who have pets, for that space where they can get out and move around easier. And I think that's the main thrust of it. Certainly, I would think that if I lived there, yeah, could I put a chair, et cetera, but I couldn't leave it there. I can already put a chair on my balcony, right? That's not the issue. And I think it's just interesting to think too, that like if I've got this concern, fair concern, how do we address it? Through the rental agreement. But that same concern exists over on the low side, just as equally as much as it does over here. So it can't be a real concern, in my opinion. We've got to be looking at what else is, what is the real concern here? Because we're going to handle it. We've shown we can handle it at the crossing. We're showing that over on the east side or the low side, it'll be handled just the same. So what's the real concern here?
Well, I guess this commission's not being asked to look at that other portion, and we didn't weigh in on that. So I think I would have had these same concerns over there. I would have had these same questions. So, but I'm looking at this one. So
Yep.
I guess that's where I wanted clarification is to, you know, is it still passive open space that's not really usable, except there you're going to have a lot of cleanup after your pet? How that's going to be managed, all of those things also. So I guess I was curious as to what the purpose of extending that out there, because it seems like it was extended to allow somebody to use it for something, but besides it doesn't seem like kids are going to really be able to.
Yeah, Mr.
Hang
Chairman,
out out
Commissioner, I agree with you. Just the size of it alone, it's not a place to go play catch, right? There's better spaces within that project to go do those things. To me, I've always thought of this as an amenity if I had pets or if I just wanted to pace around with my animal right outside. Again, it's not an area where you're going to suddenly put out your lawn chair furniture. Those will all be prohibited by the rental agreement.
It just seems like maybe those could have been pulled in and we could be asking for less, and then we're getting closer to our additional open space. So that was just a question I had for.
Yeah, to your point, that's a fair conversation, right? Which is to say, on the low side, again, that got administratively approved, not before you tonight, but it kind of set the pattern for what things would look like. But the conversation between us and the staff has never been, well, can you get to 42 or get to 41? It was just, no. And so our client respectfully disagrees. And so to Commissioner Fay's question earlier, which was, what's changed? The answer is nothing, because we haven't even had those conversations. We provided clarity on all those questions that we've been asked. We provided additional documents and drawing where we've been asked, but no one's even said, let's find some common ground.
Okay.
Commissioner Gage, the real one.
Thank you, the one and only. I have driven past the ones at Cooley Station long before I knew that that was related to what you guys are doing here, and I've always liked them. I like that they had the extra spaces. I've seen people use them in very tasteful ways. I think that the argument about a couch on a porch is a little absurd, because that's not a conversation that we would be having in this setting if this was a single-family development, because the town would understand that the HOA would take care of a situation like that. And I fully believe that you guys will handle something that's unsightly on someone's porch. So I think that that's really shouldn't be part of this conversation at all. And I think it was just a stretch of an argument, unfortunately, but I'd find some value in these spaces, and as a renter, I would find some value in having that little extra space. So I think that your proposal makes sense. And I think that unfortunately a precedent was set, and I know that planners don't like that word, but it is what it is. So you have my support tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner. And we recognize the precedent of 43 and recognize from the beginning when we started these conversations in 24 that it would take a PAD amendment for this side of the project. So no one's ever shied away from that. We knew that from the beginning.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Commissioner Gage, one more question.
Sorry, I just thought of this. Would you be open to sitting down with staff and looking at the plan, and in each individual patio, and having a conversation?
The answer to that question is yes.
Okay.
Your second question, if I anticipate it, your second question might be, are you interested in a continuance?
No.
And the answer to that is,
but-
the answer to that, and I asked specifically our client, was no. We've been fussing with this for a long time, and they're ready to start installing them, hopefully, not trying to be arrogant. So I hope I didn't jump ahead, but I just wanted to share that, what our thoughts are. But you know me personally, all of you know me, we're absolutely always happy to have a conversation with the staff.
It doesn't make sense to me that maybe that conversation hadn't been had already, that it was just a hardline no. But I'm not suggesting that
Yeah.
you ask for a continuance tonight.
We always, 100%, to the last minute, we're always happy to have that conversation.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for either party? Okay. Any public comment? Is there anyone here that wished to speak on this? I do not have a comment card, but you wish to speak on this item? Do you have a comment card filled out? There's comment cards right there. If you can come up and speak, but just grab one. If you wish to speak, you can come up and then just make sure you fill out the card for the public record, though. Yeah, so and then when you come up, just state your name and your residence.
Tom
and then-
Smith, and I'm a resident of Warner Groves. So I'm right in the back of where all of this is going, adjacent to Gabriella Point. And my question is, and I don't know if this is the body to ask this, but watching all this development, has anybody done a traffic study in this, with all this stuff going on, either of these parties? Because I live there, and I'll tell you what, getting past ALA in the morning is a blast. And now we're gonna have all these apartments? I mean, I realize it's there, and I'm not objecting to it, but I'm just wondering, has anybody looked at what the traffic is gonna be?
And we're actually not allowed to respond if that's what you were waiting for, sir. It's just, you have 3 minutes to comment, and then we will discuss it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, and now, yeah, we can now ask Keith and discuss that. So if anyone then from questions as it relates to that, want to ask Keith. Keith, are you able to speak at all on what traffic's thought is on this?
Do we have traffic here?
Or I guess, oh, wait. Look at that, ask and ye shall receive.
Okay. Yeah, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. So when this was originally went to rezone, it's actually prior to when I started, so it was around 2019, 2020, when this whole site was, and they did a master site that included this development in their assumptions. So yes, there has been a master site traffic study done.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions or anyone else that wish to speak prior? Otherwise, we can bring it back to the dais for our discussion. All right, well then with that, I'll close the public comment and bring it back up for discussion and motions. Who wants to kick off the lively discussion? Commissioner Simon, thank you.
I will just make a comment, and I'll try to articulate my thought that's running around in my head, which is kind of tired right now. But I mean, this to me comes down to some semantics to a certain extent, and I understand the logistics behind the encroachment on the sidewalks and whatnot. We're not asking to move buildings. I actually do agree with the applicant that by having this additional space and having family members that live in apartments and know the size of those 40 square foot patios, if you want to call them that they have. It's not a lot of space. So, but even by pushing these fences out a couple of feet, if not a little bit more, even if you're not using that space, it gives you what I will call breathing room. And I can see that being very attractive to somebody who is living in an apartment. And as we all know, housing costs right now are very expensive. You know, I think the applicant may have put his foot in his mouth a little bit when he said that you know, they could get a little bit more money for it. However, that being said, I would not be in disagreement, and we all, you know, we know that it comes down to dollars and cents, and does the development make sense? And if we can get a little bit more to pay for the property, then, I mean, I'm not going to tarnish them for doing that. So I guess from my perspective, I see absolutely no problem with this whatsoever. Are we encroaching on public open space versus private open space? Yeah, sure. You could argue that, but it's space that's not going to be used. It's space that's going to be sitting absolutely, you know, the leaves will be blowing and filling up the corners and whatnot, whether the fence is there or not. And I think by allowing the fence, you're actually allowing usage of space that otherwise would not be used at all. So I'll be supporting this.
Thank you, Commissioner Simon. Commissioner Davis, Vice Chairman Fay, please.
Yeah, so I've got kind of also a philosophical, get my head around it kind of feeling here. We want applicants and staff to work things out, to negotiate with each other and to negotiate in good faith. And I can't get past the fact that there was for lack of a better term, a deal, a negotiated settlement, and the applicant's coming back and saying, what's mine is mine, what's yours is negotiable. To me, if they want to have this conversation, they need to go back to the drawing board, take back that increase in height and open space, and negotiate from what the code says. To do otherwise, the precedent we're talking about is, I think that's nonsense. There hasn't been a precedent set. Maybe the city made a mistake in the past, or maybe they've changed policy. The precedent is the one I think we're setting here, that the applicant can negotiate something with staff, get it, and then say what's mine is mine, what's yours is negotiable, because I'm going to go to the council or to the commission and just try to undo the half that we agreed to. Regardless of what the change is, whether it's small, whether it's whatever, if it's positive, if it's small, then they can go back to staff, they can try to work that out. But to come back with just their half of the equation is, to me, is philosophically wrong. In fact, it's kind of almost distasteful to be considering it. I would actually like to see a code amendment to prevent this type of request from coming forward in the future. That's how much I think that this is just wrong to even consider, regardless of, it's the difference between 2 and 3, or it's only 2 feet. I mean, yeah, it probably is, and there's a lot of times when we don't worry about, let's not quibble about that, or it's really not hurting anyone. The hurting anyone is that, but how is staff going to negotiate with developers next time, knowing full well that whatever agreement they reach, the developer can say, sure. Oh, wait, nope. Oh, we're coming back in here and we're gonna negotiate, or we're just gonna try to undo that other side. So to me, unless the request is to undo all, including the height increase, and to start from scratch with staff, I consider this, to me, in fact, I said it last time for the same reason. To me, this is a non-starter. I would never support this request, and that's why I feel so strongly against it philosophically.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I come down a little bit more where Bill does, in the fact that I think a PAD comes in and we get an increase in quality that justifies the deviations that we grant. If, you know, they're going to come back and ask for a reduction in that deviation, then what are we getting as an offset? The thing that I thought a lot about is, what's the trade-off between public open space, private open space? Is the private open space still an increase in quality that justifies that? I don't know that I'm totally convinced that's the case. There is a monetary value to the applicant. I don't think a lot of effort went into trying to minimize the request as much as possible to try to keep some of that open space, and I think more effort could have been made there. I also am not willing in this hearing to go against staff's interpretation with the fencing and whether or not it encroaches, because to me, that's possibly an additional PAD request to encroach into those setbacks. I'm not comfortable sitting here today, having just heard this, and making that decision without a continuance on that issue. So I guess eliminating P and Q is a non-starter for me. I haven't been convinced tonight that that private open space is that increased quality that, because I don't think that was thought about. I don't think that that, you know, is the purpose of this. I think it's to, I don't necessarily disagree that an increase in those areas for those residents is a good or a bad, I think it's a good thing. But I don't know that the way it is structured, I don't know that it's all that, like the way that it's bumped out. There's not a lot of consistency to it. I like it a lot better in the way it is in the other development. It seems kind of haphazard a little bit in some of these. They're not a lot of consistency. I don't love the way they look. I like the, you know, so I guess with that said, I'm not supportive of this request.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner DeGravina?
I have similar views to Commissioner Leslie Davis and Commissioner Bill Fay. Staff has spent a lot more time on this than us, and I guess my concern is why weren't you able to work this out with staff before it came to us? And we see limited aspects of these things, and you guys have a lot of time to work with them on it. You think if it's that great of an idea, and you weren't able to convince staff, and I have to go along with staff because they spent a lot more time on it, that's concerning to me, that you weren't able to get your points across to them. So, again, I'm kind of against your request.
Thank you, Commissioner. I guess that brings the merry-go-round back to me. So I will say that first and foremost, the most difficult part of this type of a decision is the fact that it, on the appearance, is a very minor add-on. The semantics of whether it's connected, how it connects, I think it looks fine. I actually, as a dog person, love the idea of being able to have those dogs, and if the space, if it blends in, yeah, that's great. Where I do end up in a quandary is the precedent setting, as Vice Chairman so eloquently put it. But if we were moving forward, what does that say? And even though I don't think it's a huge deal on the back sides, the really small, thin front ones, and granted, this might be another thing of me being not the ideal candidate for this type of a housing product, but I don't see what having 2 feet of a front yard and then 2 feet of a landscape easement on the other side of that. So it's very difficult to say whether or not the question here is simply, do I think this is fine? I don't think that it's a huge deal, but the huge deal rears its head when you say, does this change the way and the process with which we do a PAD? It gets established, we acquiesce to certain needs, and then things change. I like the continuity of it. I like the idea that it would look similar to the others. But then I also go back to, if that is an argument, how is that not an argument at the origin of this, when the other one was already done, designed, built? Why would we not have said, this should be here now? I don't know the answer to that question, other than I talked with the applicant, and it came up on this one because it works really well on the other, but I don't recollect this being the same type of process on the other one, where it was not there and then it was added, and it just seemed, there's a lot of questions. And then the most fundamental one is, if they are encroaching into building setbacks, what is that going to mean? And so I do have concerns there. But that's just trying to clarify. My view on this is not simply, do I think these yard things are an open space versus private, public open space? Can I throw a ball? Can I do that? It's much more nuanced in the sense of I do not want to, on this dais, set a precedent that is going to cause a ripple effect of other things down the road within other projects, and also hamstring the staff's ability on negotiating to render them moot in negotiations by saying, well, yeah, this didn't happen, and that causes me some trouble. So, that being said, I still think that dogs would do very well in there, and if I have a dog that's actually of size, which I know on this body I have voiced before, I didn't want to make it seem like I don't like little dogs, but a dog that's at least 70 pounds, you'd want to have some kind of a fence. Those little ones probably couldn't get away. They squeezed through this anyway. So, all right, well, with that, since we have so much consensus and belief, I will shut up and allow any type of a motion or any other further discussion that the commission would like to have.
Chair, could I make a motion?
Commissioner Davis, please.
I'll put a motion out there to deny Z 24-21 Tuscany at Gabriella Point as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Davis for a denial. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion, please.
Vice Chair Fay with the second. Any discussion? Okay. Now, just to clarify here, on a denial, a yes vote is saying no.
A yes vote is to deny.
Okay, I just wanted to lay that out. I know, because I'm good at math, but I wanted to be sure that the rest of us here are familiar. Okay.
I was going to ask you that question, so let's clarify. So the green button means?
Green means,
Green means deny the application. Red means not to deny it.
Got it.
okay, we have a 4-2 in favor of the motion to deny. There was a moment there where I thought if we end 3-3, this is going to get awkward, and Elena's going to come and get me. So, all right, thank you all very much. I appreciate it. And with that, we will move to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 15, DR 24-85, Val Vista and Elliott Storage. And everyone's second favorite behind Keith, Sal.
Appreciate that warm introduction, Chair. Good evening, everybody.
Right now, Sal is thrilled to be on the agenda after that.
I know, I got to follow up that.
Yes, I want to follow Keith every time.
All righty, so the project we'll be taking a look at is DR 24-85, which is Val Vista and Elliott Storage. Sorry, just looking for the clicker. Alrighty, so the subject site outlined in blue here is located at the southeast corner of Val Vista and Elliott Road. So the subject area in blue is going to be roughly 6 acres, but the perimeter of the scope of work for the proposed storage facility is going to be a 4.5 acre portion. That's going to be roughly this portion of the site. So back in 2024, a rezone and PAD amendment came through for the site where we consolidated all the ordinance into one master ordinance, along with updating the development plan. and rezoning a portion of the property. So this portion to the right where the storage facility is going to be general commercial, and this portion of the site did remain as shopping center. For the site for the storage facility, there is currently a 37,000 square foot fitness center that was approved back in 1999, and the structure is currently vacant. So the applicant is seeking to convert the existing fitness center into a storage facility, which will include 4 accessory structures, 2 of which will be to the north and 2 of which will be to the south. And just to add some context of some neighboring parcels, we have community commercial and single family 7 located to the north. We have shopping center and SF6 located to the south. Single family 6 to the east and shopping center to the west. I did just turn the site plan just a bit just so it came out clearer on the presentation. So looking at north is going to be to the right here. So as I mentioned, that primary structure is already existing, and it is located closer to that eastern property line. So one thing you'll notice too is that primary structure does maintain a setback of 60 foot 4 inches. While the general commercial zoning designation requires a 75-foot building setback adjacent to residential, because this structure is existing, it was deemed okay to stay in the PAD, and that's actually one of the conditions that was added, that any new structure needed to maintain that 75-foot setback, but any existing or current structure would be okay in its given place. As mentioned too, those 4 accessory structures are associated with that primary, 2 to the north and 2 to the south, and they'll range in size from roughly 3,900 to 17,750 square feet. All these structures are going to be located in a east-west orientation, which is to mitigate, those visual impacts to the adjacent single family to the east. And looking at site access, there are already existing access points both on Val Vista and Elliott Road. There's going to be 2 on each street there, with 1 full access and 1 right in, right out on both of those streets as well. For the internal networks, the 2 northeast spine roads are going to remain, but the applicant is proposing to remove some of the existing parking just north and south of that existing fitness center, which is proposed as the primary storage facility, just to align with the new configuration and have that internal circulating drive and creating space for, a sufficient delivery of goods for any customer that is on site. Those drive aisles will be between 26 feet and 30 feet. They will be gated by a 5.5-foot tube steel gate system, and as mentioned, will provide sufficient circulation to all buildings associated with the storage use. One other item I wanted to highlight as well is you will see a pedestrian path that's in the northeast corner that is going to continue into the center of the site and also bring you to the neighboring arterial as well. And this is something that was laid out in the previously approved PAD, just providing not only vehicular circulation, but also pedestrian circulation on site. Looking at parking, the storage facility use requires 8 parking spaces on site. Those will all be located on the west side of the structure, adjacent to the office space, and then there'll also be 6 loading spaces spread out throughout the site evenly as well. Moving over to the landscaping, I figure it would also be easier to have the overall landscape plan opposed to those cut-up sheets that are in your packet, as it provides, a clearer image of where some of these species are going to be located and as where they're already existing in place. Some of the trees that have been proposed are going to be mulga, ghost gum, Chinese pistache, and cathedral live oak, and some of those shrubs are going to be thundercloud sage, green cloud Texas ranger, Arizona yellow bell, and coral fountain. Another thing I wanted to mention too, per that previously established PAD, is there is a double row of evergreen elms that were provided along that eastern property line, and the applicant is going to maintain the health of those trees to mitigate any visual impacts between the commercial use and that neighboring residential. Moving over to the elevations, we're gonna take a look at these starting at Building 1 through Building 5. So we're gonna start at the southern portion of the site, which is gonna be one of those accessory structures I had mentioned. So with these, it's going to follow the same materials as the primary with smooth face CMU, split face CMU, and stucco. They're going to be varying roof lines, recessed wall planes, and also the placement of some of these CMU and color blocking will align with that architecture that's seen on the primary as well. And just for context, the colors provided are vanilla shake, charcoal sketch, Huntington gray, and charcoal gray. Here is taking a look at Building 2, just north of Building 1. And then here, Building 3 is that primary building. So as I mentioned, it's existing. It does have a more of a desert tone color palette today, but with this update, the applicant is trying to play into the existing colors and materials that exist on site with the financial institution and the Starbucks. So they're bringing in some of those neutral tones, some of those, quieter tones with some of those darker trims along the roof line. Again here, just showing Building 4. And another thing I wanted to mention as well is that Building 3 and 4 will be connected by a shared roof line. And I do have a document, or I'm sorry, a image coming up that kind of shows that transition a bit better for you. Again, Building 5 here, showing some of those colors, materials, and placements. And then here you can see the transition between Building 3 and Building 4. They will be using the same colors, same materials, same roofing, architectural accents, and then, like I said, transitioning right into Building 3 to make it seem like a, seamless one structure. As for a closer look at the colors and materials, here they are for you on the screen. You can see the various shades of grays, whites, and that iron ore that is represented as that accent color there, which will be on the mechanical screening. And with that, staff's recommendation for the Planning Commission is to approve the findings of fact and approve DR 24-85 Val Vista and Elliott Storage. And with that, I'll open up to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sal. Well done. All right, anyone have any questions or comments for Sal? Everybody seems a bit shell-shocked. It's understandable.
I do have a question.
Vice Chair.
And usually, Sal, I drill into the county recorder and I look at some of the site history. I didn't do that on this property, but that pedestrian way to the north, just kind of, is that just a lingering aspect of the way the parcel already is, or a variancy of old platting or something, or is there a is that deliberately being done here for some reason?
Chair Munt, Vice Chair Fay. So that pedestrian path is something that is established from previous ordinances and PADs. Going back a ways, I think the vision for the site is a bit different than the way it did pan out, where we are today. And one of those requirements in that PAD was to maintain some sort of pedestrian connectivity from the arterials to the center of the site. And we felt that that was something that was important to keep in the PAD and the design, as we believe this project is going to, help revitalize the site as it's been vacant for quite some time. So we just wanted to make sure that that requirement from the PAD was reflected in the development.
That length of property heading to the north and the pedestrian way, they're already there?
They are, correct.
And basically the developer's just not messing with it, is what I'm hearing.
Correct. And the only change they will be making is they will be, so this portion right here is what is existing, this pathway, and they're going to continue it down south and connect through this section when the future commercial pad is ready to be developed in the center of the site, and they will also be adding that stretch running east-west through the existing commercial. But a majority of it, to your point, Vice Chair Fay, has been constructed.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Commissioner Anderson.
I'll jump in, seeing how everybody out here is probably exhausted from that last one. So I think this is a huge improvement of what's there now. I mean, as you pointed out, it's been vacant for so long. There used to be an LA Fitness I used to go to, and I remember I went on vacation one week, I come back, and there was a sign that they're closed, and I'm like, all right, well, where do I, didn't even tell us that they were shutting down, and I had to go find another gym to go to. And I go to the Safeway across the street like every Sunday, so I see this every day, and I'm glad to see that somebody's developing this and improving it. I think the building design is nice. I think it fits in well with the area, or actually enhances the area. I think it's gonna be one of the nicer looking buildings there. So I am glad to see that this one is going forward and somebody's actually developing it, and I think they've done a nice job with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Anderson? I have a story about LA Fitness too, but I'm gonna, it became an e-sport, and now it's Mountainside Fitness, when they've been charging me since COVID. I just found that out. And I haven't even worked out. Anyway, any other questions for, I mean, we're talking 4 years of just bills, whatever. 5. That's the problem. Okay, then is the applicant here and wanted to present at all, do you know so?
I actually, okay, great, we got him right over here.
All in good time, sir.
Hey, good evening, Chair, Commission members. Kelly Ferguson, I'm the applicant representing the developer. I'm the architect for the project, actually. I don't have a presentation for you. Be glad to answer any questions that you have. I think Sal did a great job presenting the project for us. Great job working with us throughout the zoning and the design review phases of this project. Made some changes along the way that I think helped the project out, so we're happy with it.
Awesome. Anyone have any questions for the applicant? Okay, well, thank you very much, sir. We do have a public comment card here on this one. And Karen, I'm gonna try to, I hope I say your name correctly. Karen Goldwasser? She can correct me when she gets up, but she would like to speak if she's in favor of the item. Step up, just state your name probably correctly and your residence, and then 3 minutes, please.
Mr. Chair and Planning Commissioners, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak and get into the process of this board. This is my first time here, so thank you for understanding. I'm Karen Goldwasser. I live in the Sonoran Vista Homeowners Association, which is abutting directly to this development. Thank you for maintaining the existing mature trees along the back of the existing building. And also the lighting I'm concerned about, that on the page they're talking about security pole mounted lighting, 14 feet in height, and then building lights 10 feet high. On those I don't know who to talk to. On those 14 tall security building lights, I don't know what's existing now. I drove a long time ago, but there's a drive area behind the existing building, and then the trees to the community, and then the homeowners association houses. So I'm sure the spill effect of those security lights will be taken into consideration for the homeowners. And I don't know if that, I'm not assuming anything, so I'm just mentioning it, that it's not going to be blinding into their homes on the back side, the dark side, if you will, of the existing building. Also, the colors, I like color, but that orange is a little shocking, and I hope that the signage is going to be subtle. I drove by, and I wish I had the time to stop and take a picture or go back, of an existing public storage facility, extremely well done in Gilbert. The signing was minimal. The painting, it would just fit into the community where it was situated. So I don't know, I think on the agenda it says that the signage is not included in this approval. So I don't know what that entails. The only other thing I have is that there was an original homeowners invitation to the public meeting, and it was just the big billboard signs. And I have issues with those because you can't slam on your brakes on Val Vista or Elliott to figure out who to call about the project to get more information. And when you do slow down, or when I did get out and walk, you know, it says call the developer in Beverly Hills. So now the next thing that came out was to the homeowners association that we were sent, the staff from the city planning department sent an email with all of the exhibits to our property manager, and our property manager was diligent enough to send it out to all the homeowners. So if I'm the only homeowner of 177, here I am. The issue with the public notice, again, it's hard to find the bouncing ball in the trail to get to somebody to speak to in person. It says, come to the planning department, and you can look at the exhibits and the presentations yourself. And there's no way to get to, how do you get to the planning department? Where's the planning department? Who do you call? How do you get there? Do you make an appointment? Do you have to have some kind of protocol to get in to see the plans? You know, I guess you just don't drop in. So with all that being said, thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate your letting me speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. And I think that we can probably speak to the lighting, Sally, if you want, just to notice, because I'm sure that on, we have the photometric layouts in the plans that would probably show the directional lighting, and that's partially, by code we do it, but Sal can articulate that better than I.
Absolutely, and thank you for the questions. So in regards to the photometric plan, a few things that we keep an eye out for are ensuring that the proposed lighting is within a certain distance away from any residential. So if any proposed lighting that is security or pole mounted and is within 100 feet of residential, they cannot exceed a mounting height of 14 feet. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe some of those security pole lightings on site are already existing from the previous development. But any new lighting that is going to be installed on walls must be 15 feet or lower, and any pole-mounted lighting as well must be 14 feet or lower. And just another thing to add too is during the review of our photometric plans, we did review the foot candles, and that is essentially the light spill to ensure that there isn't an excess light spill onto property lines. Our requirement is 0.3, and it looks like adjacent to the single family to the east, we're not exceeding any of the required foot candle percentages.
Okay. And then the other concern she had was the colors and whatnot, but if people wanted to discuss that, we can. Anybody else have any other questions for Sal before I set him back to the pilot's chair he has there solo in the front? Okay, well, thank you very much, Sal. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, well then with that, I will close the public comment, bring it to the dais for discussion or a motion if anyone is so inclined. Vice Chair Fay, I see a hot mic.
I'm not trying to cut off any discussion, but I move to approve DR 24-85.
We have a motion for approval from the illustrious Vice Chair Fay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Simon. Discussion? If not, please cast your vote when able. And the motion carries 7-0. Thank you all very much. Okay. And that will bring us down into the administrative items on the agenda. These items are for the commission's discussion and action. It is to the discretion of the majority of the commission regarding public input requests on any administrative item. Persons wishing to speak on an administrative item should complete a comment card form indicating the item number on which you wish to address the commission may or may not accept public comment. Given there's nobody here that I believe, is anyone here wishing to speak on an administrative item of which there is only the minutes? I don't see anyone. So item 16 is the Planning Commission meeting minutes. Consider the approval of the minutes of the study session and regular meeting from April 2nd, 2025. And I do have a question, being as that I was not here last month. These are now those minutes. He was chair, vice chair. Did we clarify whether I vote on this? Elena, I'm going to put you on the spot just because I remember a discussion and then I remember being confused.
Mr. Chair, I did review, I believe it's town council policy that was adopted by town council, and it does require a vote from everyone unless you've recused yourself because of conflict.
Ooh, I could make that sticky, but, okay. And then do I sign it, though? Or would that be Vice Chair Fay because he was serving as chair? I think it's him, but
I haven't taken a look at what you signed, so perhaps we can.
hold on, let me just see. If it says his name, that'll be easier. No, if it says mine, great. Okay, carry on. Would anyone like to make a motion on these minutes? that are-
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 2nd.
Yes.
I'll second that.
With all due respect, I'll second that. It's already happened.
We have a motion from Commissioner
I would
Simon and a
like to
second by
retract my
Commissioner
motion.
DeGravina, and a Johnny-come-lately not second by Vice Chair. Please cast your vote accordingly. I'm putting a lot of trust in you guys here, I just want you to know. Motion carries 7-0. Takes us into communications. We do not have an executive session. I will not belabor that point. Item 17, report from chairman and members of the commission on current events. Who's got something? We got a hot mic, Commissioner DeGravina, but he's just been hot all night. He can't help himself. It's all right. Well, I personally will make a current event that I want everyone to know that I sacrificed my time. My 8-year-old Little League at Gilbert American Little League, they were playing tonight in the playoffs, win or go home. And I got the text that they won 9-8 in extra innings. And, you know, Purple D-backs, let's go. They're now 4-0 when I've missed. I don't know if that's telling me something. I don't know if they're going to want me back next week for the rest, but I just wanted to let everyone know that Purple D-backs got a big win tonight. All right, anything else? No. And we will move over to Ms. Ashley for any update from the Planning Services Management.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to take a moment to recognize two of our planners on staff. Keith Newman and Sal DeSanto graduated with their master's degree from Park University over the weekend. A huge accomplishment to do that while they handle a very heavy workload from staff and balance their personal lives. So just huge congratulations to them.
Wow. I feel naked. We should have brought them flowers like we did for Ava. I'd like to put that on the agenda for next time, but well done, gentlemen. Very proud of you, and I think it speaks volumes of the great staff we have here, so thank you. All righty then, we'll move into an adjournment of which, this is another one I don't know if I'm supposed to.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion from
Second.
Commissioner Simon and a second from the Vice Chair Fay on adjournment. Is there any discussion? No? Please cast your vote when Ashley's able to catch up with the rapid fire action that we are here on this commission. Bill Fay with the second, using Robert's rules and not casting his vote. Wait, just say aye. Aye. Okay, vocal on him. We have a 7-0 vote. Thank you all very much. Meeting adjourned. Wow, what a fun one. What a fun one.